Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Levi. I'm the owner of Dynamic. We are a business that helps accounting firms, bookkeeping firms, and administration firms implementing AI, building automations to basically make more money, save on costs, and just make life easier, actually. This is The Balance. Today, I've got a very special guest, Eric. Thank you for being on the podcast. Could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and about what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Levi. Eric Egeland. I am the owner and founder of Capacity Bookkeeping. We're a full-service bookkeeping firm with US-based bookkeepers, and another service that we provide is fractional CFO, so part-time outsourced CFO, a chief financial officer for firms that can't afford a full-time CFO.
All right, interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background? Because I've checked your LinkedIn, of course, and I think this is not your first business. This is not what you started with. Can you tell me more about your background as an entrepreneur and how you got into what you're doing right now?
That's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it.
We've got all the time.
So of real interest is my very first real job was rockstar. We didn't discuss that at all. So when I got out of college, I was a musician in high school, and I actually pursued being a rock star. Got as big as you could get without a major record label. So in a couple of years, we were big in Japan. We were on MTV. We were in magazines, on the radio. But I quit that because I didn't enjoy the lifestyle. It was fun for a little while, but too much of that is crazy. I got into the insurance business by accident, did that for about 8 years. I read a book on management consulting, like McKinsey, and didn't even realize that was a vocation. So that opened my eyes, and I thought, oh my God, that's what I was made to do, management consulting. So I padded my E-Trade account for a year of living expenses. I quit my job, and I started Capacity Consulting. This is about 25 years ago. 10 years ago, I started Capacity Bookkeeping. And just so the entrepreneurs can appreciate this, 6 years ago, I started Capacity Marketing, and we just closed it December 31st. We made millions over the 6 years, but it was a very, very difficult business. So that one's gone.
Right. So 25 years ago, you started Capacity Consulting. 10 years ago, you started Capacity Bookkeeping. 6 years ago, you started Capacity Marketing, but Capacity Marketing has now stopped. And right now, you're focusing mainly on Capacity Bookkeeping and Capacity Consulting, right?
And really Capacity Bookkeeping. Capacity Consulting, just another interesting story, is we do feasibility studies, economic impact studies all over the country. That business is very federal fund heavy. And a lot of that is being frozen and stopped right now in the current administration. So we're really focusing on bookkeeping.
All right. And what made you start Capacity Bookkeeping, and how has it evolved over the past 10 years?
Yeah, so the original idea came from when we were doing management consulting. Some companies were turnarounds, right? So a company would come to us and they just needed help. They grew too fast and they needed help. So the first thing we would ask for is a blood test. You know, your financials, right? Send us your financials. And we'd get a mess. So in my consulting practice, we can trend a set of financials in about 6 minutes, but it could take 3 days to clean them up. And at $350 an hour, that was really not feasible. That was where the idea came from. I'll create a bookkeeping company, tell the client, send your books over to my bookkeeping company to clean up at a reduced rate. And then come back and we'll do the trending, knowing that they would probably leave their books with the bookkeeping firm, and it would be a reoccurring revenue model that we don't have in consulting. So that's where the idea came from.
All right. And are there maybe specific things that when you started Capacity Bookkeeping, you already had 15 years of experience with Capacity Consulting? Are there any lessons or maybe mistakes or things that you considered when starting Capacity Bookkeeping from your 15 years of experience with consulting?
Yeah. So,
I guess many.
I'll give you an overarching topic that I think is the best advice that people could think of, and that is focus on the failures. Everybody talks about being positive and you know, go with your passion, but really the gold is in paying attention to the failures and the mistakes. Your whole company, all the people that work for you, like if something is broken or something goes wrong or a mistake is made, you should stop everything and focus on that in a positive way, right? You don't need to be mean or pick on anybody, but focus on that topic, debrief, find out why it happened, find out how to make it not happen again in the future. Like if you can do that, and that's how I operate personally, so all my companies operate that way. If a mistake is made, we analyze the heck out of it to try to figure out how to improve. And if you do that, then eventually you get to a point where you start out with 5 things that keep going wrong and you end up with none. And everything runs smoothly. And you, as an owner, you don't even have to go to work full time, right? Because it's all just running smoothly.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe at the end of the day, making mistakes and doing things wrong is where the actual progress is and where you actually learn stuff. Because if everything is just going smoothly and easily, you're not actually learning. It's just doing what you're used to do.
Exactly, 100%. In feasibility studies and in management consulting, there's a thing called a SWAT analysis. You've probably heard of that. So it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And amateur firms will focus on the opportunities and the strengths, but the goal is in focusing on the threats and the challenges. Like that's where the gold is. Like you said, that's where the improvement opportunities are. That's the word I would use, improvement opportunities.
All right. Okay. And are there then any real lessons or real threats or mistakes that you have made? Like what are like the biggest mistakes that you've made in those first 15 years as capacity consulting that you didn't have to make anymore for bookkeeping?
So you're going to hate this answer because it doesn't really lead into anything. I really have to think hard about mistakes. And the reason for that is not out of arrogance in any way, shape, or form. It's because my consulting background, the main thing that we do in capacity consulting are feasibility studies. The whole point to a feasibility study is to vet everything out on paper and research so that when you actually start the business, there's minimal mistakes to be made because you already vetted it all out on paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be honest with you, having done that for all three businesses, there is really it's tough to say, wow, a mistake that we made. Uh, there's things that go wrong. There's improvement opportunities, as I mentioned before, but like choosing to go one way and then realizing it was a flat out mistake and correcting and going the other way. I'm happy to say that hasn't really occurred to us
Mm-hmm.
because of the because of the research and feasibility that goes in the beginning. I can tell you challenges if that helps.
Challenges I'm very interested in. I'm very
Yeah.
interested in challenges that you've had with consulting in the first 15 years and that you've overcome, but also in the past 10 years with capacity bookkeeping.
Yeah. So the number one challenge that you'll probably hear all the time, and we've come up with a solve for this, of course, looking to improve constantly, but you'll hear people say one of the most important things you can do to scale a company is your people. And I always found that to be kind of silly, right? Well, of course they have to be good, but interview them properly. But the higher level people that you have, your vice presidents and your people that you really rely on, finding a personality fit. So you can always find people that have the skills that you need. That's pretty easy. But finding people that have the right personality. So in my consulting practice, we've actually had the people that we love take a personality test. There's many out there to figure out what their personality type is. And then if we hire somebody else, we make them take that test to see if they fit that personality. And there's like 10 different ones, right? In this particular test. And the reason for that is that when you discover, hey, I have this person that can not only do the work, but I can put them in front of a board, I can put them in front of a CEO. They know how to handle themselves. They know how to talk. They know when to work hard and when to have fun. Like they're just appropriate all the time and kick ass all the time. What is their personality type so that I don't get fooled in an interview? Let me try to find that. So that's a challenge that we faced and I think we figured out in bookkeeping as well.
All right.
Yeah, and let's see. I think you and I talked about like the bookkeeping model. I'm going to talk about that real quick because I think that'll bring up some challenges. When we started the bookkeeping company, we did a feasibility study on it. We looked at all the different ways you could get your books done, right? Hiring somebody in-house, hiring a lady down the street, having your CPA do it, overseas model. And we looked at all the pros and cons of all those different models, and we picked our model that all of our bookkeepers have at least 10 years of experience. They have accounting degrees, and a lot of people say, why do you have to have an accounting degree to be a bookkeeper? Well, you can hire a bookkeeper that's QuickBooks certified, and they have 10 years of experience in keeping books. In QuickBooks, they know the software really well, but they don't know generally accepted accounting principles that someone with a degree does. And we charge $52 an hour in 15-minute increments, which is really low for that level of talent. So this was a discovery on ours. What's the secret sauce? How do we figure that out? They're all ladies right now, coincidentally, maybe. We hire these ladies in rural areas in the United
Mm-hmm.
States. Lori, who's been with us for probably about 7 years. She's in a tiny little town in Vermont.
Hmm.
Milton, Vermont, the middle of nowhere. Lives there with her husband and her 2 dogs, right? Victoria is in a tiny little town in Florida. So that was a discovery because it's hard. That's a challenge for many firms like ours is hiring good talent
Hmm.
without having to charge their clients too much. Us that finding people in rural areas is one of our secret sauces. Now
All
that I've
right.
just
Yeah.
told everybody, don't steal it and go take all.
Now, if this podcast goes viral, your whole strategy will be stolen. All right. And also before the podcast, we've talked a little bit about the specific model that you follow with capacity bookkeeping. You call it the hybrid model. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so that's a little bit about that model. I was kind of leading into it, right? So hiring the people with 10 years of experience, accounting degrees, but US based at an affordable price point. Those are all the pieces to the model. So we found that people don't like overseas, especially in the US. People have a hard time with accents sometimes, both in understanding and trust. Not yours, you have a cool accent, right? But
Thank you. I appreciate it.
in our research, we found that people have a problem with that. And the other issue is that this is an interesting fact. Internal bookkeepers, if you hire a bookkeeper in your business, they are the number one embezzler
Hmm.
in both frequency and dollar amount. There's a study done by Hiscox Insurance. They're a worldwide insurer of fidelity. And bookkeepers steal more money than CFOs, controllers, accounts payable, accounts receivable. It's bookkeepers that are the worst. So having a single bookkeeper that works in your organization is one of the biggest mistakes you can make.
All right. So bookkeepers are the biggest thieves out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
volunteer
interesting.
bookkeepers for like fire. In the US, we have a lot of volunteer firehouses.
Uh-huh.
You know, when your house goes on fire, the volunteer fire department is who comes out to put the fire out. And they always have one of the guys doing the books there, and they steal money all the time. It's in the news constantly.
That's crazy.
So you're better subbing it out
Uh-huh.
to a professional firm that's got management oversight and insurance and
Yeah. Then working with thieves.
well, not all of them, obviously, right?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Statistically,
All right, that's crazy. With capacity bookkeeping, let's focus a little bit more on bookkeeping because obviously at the end of the day, this is a accounting, bookkeeping, administration focused podcast. What are the things that you're working towards? What are like the main goals with the firm right now?
so we have two main goals. One being a little bit more specific. We have always done fractional CFO work. So being a part-time CFO, outsourced CFO for companies who can't afford a full-time CFO. That is a service that I have always done because I enjoy it. And I've only had one or two clients that I kind of handpicked and would do it again, almost like a hobby because I really enjoy that amount of influence where I can really help a particular company grow. So we are now marketing that. So we have brought on some people. I just brought on a CPA with an MBA, and we're really trying to grow the fractional CFO arm of capacity bookkeeping. The second part of that, a little bit more global, is growth. So the company has always grown about 30% a year organically. Just from people calling us and SEO and a little bit on capacity bookkeeping and kind of putting capacity consulting aside for a second and really focusing on the bookkeeping and the fractional CFO, I'm really looking to bump that up to 300%. So that is something that is I'm currently totally involved in interviewing and finding a repeatable lead generation system. We close leads pretty immediately because of our model and how we are, but getting enough leads to grow 300% is our current. I don't want to say it's a challenge. I'm in my research phase, right? Trying to find what'll work the best for us and be the most cost efficient and repeatable is the key. We found things that have worked in the past, but for one reason or another, they haven't been repeatable for us or because of the company.
I understand. And what do you currently do to try and grow, to get more leads and to close more leads?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny when you start a small business from scratch, the very first thing that everybody does, and this makes sense because you don't have a marketing budget and you don't have staff and it's just you and you start a company, is networking. Right? You go out and network because you have a lot of time on your hands and no money, right? So you run around and you meet everybody and you network. And that works fantastic to grow to 80 people, 50 people, maybe 100 clients. But after that, you have to come up with some kind of repeatable lead generation if you're gonna really try to scale. What we do, what's worked in the past really well for us, believe it or not, is cold calling. Just literally cold calling businesses and saying, "Hey, we have an outsourced bookkeeping firm. Would you be interested in having a chat?" You have to make a lot of calls, right? And we would hire somebody to do that. Problem is, everybody's like getting out of that business. We had two Canadian firms in a row. They moved to email. So now we have a person in the Philippines or somewhere that's making cold calls. So that's occurring. We do email drip campaigns. So regular emails going to people, and the cold callers will sometimes make the call. And if they can't get an appointment, they just ask for the email. So that gives us like opt-in emails, and then we can slowly communicate with those people via email. So those are the two main active things we're doing right now: cold call and email drip campaigns. We do a little bit of passive advertising and social media posting. That might,
Not a real strategy, or
yeah, exactly. 5 or 10 people a year trickle in because of that.
all right. So most of your clients, you would say, come from cold calling.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, that's pretty interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And how is your firm currently approaching new technologies, like, for example, AI?
Yes. I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I'm 57, so I'm kind of getting to that age where I'm not really interested in learning new things, unfortunately. You'll realize you're very interested in reading and digesting and learning everything you can, but you hit a certain age where you're like, you know what, I'm full.
Yeah, I could imagine.
But I'm forcing myself to kind of dig into AI a bit and to try to learn how it can help our organization. One of the things that I got excited about, and I might have read it in Entrepreneur magazine or something like that, was, and I went on and found somebody, or I saw a video of AI cold calling. So literally like an AI person making a call, and you couldn't tell at all that it was an AI person. And even the other person on the phone asked questions, and the AI person answered them like naturally. And I say person, the AI robot answered
Yeah.
properly. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. But I have been digging around trying to find an AI cold call solution that can just bang cold calls without a person. And I haven't been able to find any. All the ones that I found are like, oh no, we kind of advertise that, but we don't do that. We could use the AI to help you improve your workflow. Like, I don't need that. I just need that cool robot that makes calls all day long. So that's our current thing that we're digging into, is trying to find a lead generation system that works really well. There's other systems that I'm looking at right now, that list that you can buy. So right now we buy a list from one place. I have a cold caller in another place. I have MailChimp email marketing in another place. There's some systems that'll like put all that together. So we're looking at that, looking at the AI cold calling. I'm kind of in that research hell right now.
And are there already like certain things that you have implemented or already use yourself? Maybe only ChatGPT, or this is really like the first steps that you're making in the world of AI?
Yeah, no, first time. I think I wrote an article using ChatGPT to throw on our website, just to kind of create some more blog material on our website recently. Which was awesome. That came out fantastic. We could like cut and paste it. So
Yeah.
we might do more of that. But again, that's kind of passive, right? It's not
It's not like a real problem that's solved or a real automated thing.
Yeah. Making your website better and adding all kinds of stuff. It helps with SEO, but that's not gonna, that's not gonna actively grow you 300% a year.
Yeah, I see. And what are key trends in the accounting industry or in the bookkeeping industry that you currently are responding to? Maybe not AI, or maybe other things. What are you expecting from the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you an old tried and true trend that we see that's kind of a negative, and that trend is to consolidate. So it's always good, like, let's consolidate, let's be more efficient, let's try to do that. And in the world of finance, that is often the opposite way to go. So I'll give you a for instance. When people are trying to hire a bookkeeper, they're often looking for a bookkeeper admin. I want somebody to keep my books, make coffee in the morning, take my appointments. Well, so if you get that person's not going to be a good bookkeeper 9 times out of 10. They're going to be a good admin that took a course on QuickBooks or Xero. But people try to consolidate. And then also by consolidating, you put yourself in a position for theft again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a trend that we find with both customers and in our industry. So a lot of CPA firms try to do everything. They get a client and they try to like control everything. We want to do their taxes. We want to be their CFO. We want to do their books. We want to control everything. And that's a bad thing in our opinion, because the more people that you have involved in your finance, to a certain degree, of course, right? The
Mm-hmm.
better. So we are advocates of keep your bookkeeping, your CFO, and your CPA as three separate things, potentially with three different firms. And then you have three different levels of advice. You have people keeping an eye out for each other so nobody can do anything wrong or make a mistake or steal. So that anti-consolidation is something that we wish we would see more often.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Interesting. One thing I'm curious about, we already talked obviously about your goal that you want to grow and focus on capacity bookkeeping. You already grew 30% in the past year, right?
That's our
Oh, that's the average. Oh, that's insane. That's the average over the last 10 years. Where do you want to be as an entrepreneur in, let's say, 5 years from now? With capacity consulting, but also with capacity bookkeeping, what would be like the ideal scenario for you?
Yeah, so I've done a really good job of kind of being described to you, which is I try not to do any of the actual. I don't try. I build the company that way. So I don't keep books, right? I do the fractional CFO thing because I like it for a client or two. But the consulting company and the bookkeeping company are all manage the team. I'm responsible for business development clearly and like trying to get that up and running. So really my goal in 3 years
When you're 60.
60 is to back off a little more and do some traveling. The management that I have to do now, I could do on the road, but with me trying to really get bookkeeping growing a little faster, I'm really focused. Like the last 2 days, I haven't been in the office because I've been running around and doing meetings. But if I achieve that, then I'm going to go back to just kind of passively managing and traveling. That's the goal.
Nice. And are there any things stopping you right now from reaching that goal within 3 years?
No, because it doesn't just have to do with the business. It has to do with personal investments and what have you. They're on track to hit what I want them to hit in 3 years. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't even pull from retirement in the US to your 59 and a half.
All right.
So all that money that I've invested, I got to wait.
Yeah, you gotta wait. All right. Okay,
Not
interesting.
that I couldn't do it now with the income that's coming in from the businesses. So sure, if the bookkeeping company, if we found some kind of scalable thing and it blew up this year and went absolutely insane and was something that was automated, whether it's people or automation, that I could kind of step back, I might do it earlier, sure.
Who knows? Who knows
Yeah.
what 2025 has to bring?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, interesting. Okay, we're nearly at like 30 minutes for the podcast. Eric, I've got one last question that I ask every guest on the podcast. For people listening, whether it are CEOs and founders of other firms, whether it's just someone that's super interested in your story or in you, or whether it's just someone who stumbled across the podcast, what is one piece of advice that you would give to other entrepreneurs, other people with maybe a consulting business, people with maybe a bookkeeping firm as well, people that are looking to grow or looking to innovate? What is one piece of advice that you would give?
Yeah, so first, for an entrepreneur, a starting entrepreneur, my biggest number one advice, you've heard this before, is work on the business, not in it. That's number one. And number two that goes with that is focus. So pick something that you're going to focus on. And maybe that's a particular market.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to go after attorneys, right, for bookkeeping and focus on attorneys and tell everybody that you do books for attorneys. Because what happens is everybody that looks at you, if they have something super simple to remember, then it's easy for them to refer you and think about you and tell people about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that work on it, not in it. If you're a bookkeeper and you work yourself up to 20 clients, you have less and less time to go out and get more clients. So eventually you're just going to top out and you're going to be doing 25, 30 clients. If you come up with a model where you bring somebody on, even if you do it right away and spend money on it, and you go out and focus on business development or something else, that puts you in a position to scale. If not, you'll be stuck forever.
And I think nobody wants that.
Some
Definitely
people
no.
like to stay home and do books and be left alone and have 25 clients. That's cool if that's what you're into. But if you want to grow the business, you can't be doing the work.
100%. You shouldn't work in the business, but you should work on the business. That's a good one. Perfect. All right. Eric, if people want to learn more from you, or if people want to reach out to you personally or whatever, where could they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is capacitybookkeeping.com, and my email is Eric, ERIC, at capacitybookkeeping.com. Interesting fact, bookkeeping is the only English word that has double letters 3 times in a row.
Double K, double O, double E. All right, interesting. Good little fun fact for the end of the podcast. Really nice.
So everybody spells it right.
Perfect. Eric, I will make sure to put the links to your email, to your website and everything also in the description of the podcast. Is there any last words or any last things you would like to say for the listener?
No, I think I got it all out. I thank you. It was great, Levi. And, thanks for having me.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. My name was Levi. My guest today was Eric Egeland, and this was The Balance.